Hey there, I am KashCast, and this is the KashCast, a laid-back animation-focused podcast where I interview artists, animators, and content creators about their work, life, and interests. With me, I have Jeff Trammell, who is no doubt familiar to many of you as a head writer on Creditor Creek. I'm super excited to have him on. So, first off, I want to ask Jeff if you have anything you want to add or anything you want to say, just feel free.
Cool. Well, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. You were very willing to work with my schedule, which I appreciate. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk.
Yeah. This has been one of those episodes I've been really looking forward to myself. First off, I wanted to ask some questions I had about listening to your episode on Creative Block, which is another good podcast, wink. For starters, as someone who is passionate about animation, but, didn't have a traditional background in terms of entering, what has your experience in the industry been like, and what would you advise to people who are in similar spots?
Man, my experience has been incredible. Like from day one, I've been so excited to be a part of this industry, and I've said it a million times. I'll continue to say it a million times. Like everyone who works in animation is so nice and caring, and so willing to go out of their way to help other people and give them advice or just do whatever they can. So it's really incredible industry to be a part of. So from day one, everyone was always willing to give me advice and talk to me and help me out. So I want to make sure that I do the same for people who are coming up. In terms of people who were in similar spots as I was, it's such a hard thing to give advice for because I for all intents and purposes won a contest to get this job, and it was tough. But everyone's not going to be able to follow that path. So I would say just the things that I would say, if you're looking to break in is study your craft, whether that's writing or storyboarding or, you want to design props or whatever. Reach out to people who are doing the same job that you are, especially in animation, because they are so nice and caring. I mean, obviously be respectful of their time, but
of course,
if they're willing to give you advice or help you out, definitely take them up on that. And just kind of make those contacts because those are important too. So once you do make it out here, if your goal is to move to LA and start working in animation, at least you have a small circle of people that that maybe can help you or recommend you or, just kind of you can pick their brains and so on.
Yeah, exactly. Also, let me just say, for those who aren't in the know, do you mind going over some of the duties of a writer that you have had on an animated show or some of the other roles that we've had in the industry so far?
For sure. I will say it definitely depends on the show. When I was on Harvey Beaks, they had just kind of a focused writer's room of maybe 5 or 6 people. And the whole point was to just generate stories and ideas and whatnot, work on premises and outlines, eventually pitch them to Carl Greenblatt, who's the creator and showrunner, and then eventually hand those off to the storyboard artists. And on Craig, we would do handouts, and then they would go to the board team, and then 5 weeks later, we'd see the final pitch. And, a lot can change between then based on the directors and the board artists and if the story's working and so on. Whereas at Craig, it was a lot more hands-on. We would hand out the boards. We would sit in on the pitches. We would pitch different jokes. We would pitch different, shot ideas and things like that. Go to records, go to edits and everything. So it's a lot more hands-on. But the most base level is we sit in a room, we come up with ideas. We write a page-long story just to kind of hit the big beats, and then we'll do a outline once that premise gets approved to kind of delve into more of the emotion and the heart of the story and the jokes. And then we'll usually hand that out to our board team. We'll do they'll go off and draw up the episode and write out dialogue and put in jokes and whatnot, and then we usually come back and kind of work together to fully fine-tune it.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, it definitely sounds like a pretty in-depth process. One of my experience is, just talking to many people on this show, getting experience, is that like I really wanted to like hone in and hopefully like also just like teach people just like some differences between like the opportunities, no, not opportunities, sorry, responsibilities. Some people can have like, depending on working on shows, like more board driven versus like, you know, some just like more focused on script. So, you know, again, just like very interesting for you to say.
Yeah, I mean, I've also been lucky enough to work on script-driven shows, and they run completely different to the ones I was just talking about. But I think there's, of course, pros and cons to both. As a writer, I think one thing that's really cool about board-driven shows is that you get that kind of creativity of working together and that kind of teamwork of like, okay, I set this up, you know, how will they knock it down? And there's like some intrigue to that, or seeing how it's interpreted. Whereas with script driven, I think it's more, I feel like you have more kind of control, for better or worse, because if the script isn't strong, like your weaknesses are going to show once it goes on to the next stage.
Right.
So yeah, but yeah, I mean, both are cool. I love both. I'm trying to think of something profound to say, but I just like both. They're both cool.
Oh yeah, gotcha. Let's see. During your time on Craig, how much were you able to insert yourself into what you worked on? And I don't mean in a literal sense, cannonball, but things from your personal experiences or your hobbies or passions.
All the time. I was lucky enough to start on Craig very early. Like when Craig was technically still in the development phase, they brought me in to do what I believe is like the third or fourth episode of the show, which is Too Many Treasures, which coincidentally introduces the 10 speeds. And they had designs for those kids, so I didn't even like come up with Cannonball, although I did name Handlebar. But coming in that early gave me a lot of opportunities to put myself in the show. I've said in the past that like Craig's dad, Dwayne, is like basically Tiffany Ford's father and my father like mashed together. So it's a lot of like the bad puns, the pretending to be a spy, which was what my dad did. Like that's all in Dwayne. And you know, same with like Grandpa Earl, you know, like a lot of those things do come from like my life or Tiffany's life or Matt and Ben's and so on. So we have been able to like infuse a lot of ourselves into the show, which has been really cool. I think especially for me, like working on the show with the African-American lead and, you know, growing up and not getting to see a ton of that, and then being able to take things from my life and share that with Craig and basically with all these other people who are seeing Craig has been really fun.
Yeah, exactly. I think personally, when I was like growing up, no, there were definitely like shows of characters that I could like relate to in terms of like personality experiences, but I didn't really have much in terms of like people who also like looked like me. You know, of course, listen to like other stuff. Of course, you know, we gotta bring up Static Shock. That's something that meant a lot to me as well. But you know, it's just like interesting because, you know, you just have like different, you know, types of people in general, but especially Black people. So, you know, I feel like now we're in more of a spot where it's like, you know, it's beyond like certain like personality archetypes, you know, just you know, like jock, nerd, etc. You know, just have more variety because like you see a lot of like varied people around you. So like, why not bring that to the screen or written text or whichever medium?
For sure. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, okay. So, as a huge Amphibia fan, I definitely have to say that I enjoyed the episode you wrote, The Domino Effect. How was your experience in getting used to the characters and working on that episode?
I think you're the first person to ask me this. That's hilarious. I actually, like, believe it or not, wrote the first like outline for The Domino Effect the same month that I wrote the first episode of Craig that I did.
Oh, geez.
Both were in production, I want to say in like early 2017, around like May or so. And I went in and I got to meet Matt Brawley, who was like, we were doing the show, and I got to see like the pilot animatic and stuff, and it was really cool because I could tell like, okay, this show is gonna be like great. Like they showed like a fun twist at the end, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be fun. But it was also kind of difficult because there wasn't much to go off of outside of the animatic, which is a very hard part of writing for shows early on. Is you kind of have to try to find the voice or help figure it out. And when there's already something set up, you just try to match that as much as you can. So I think the original version of the Domino Effect I wrote actually ended up going through some changes by the time it got to television. I know Charlie Feldman, who's a friend of mine, helped write on that episode as well. So it did change a bit, but one of the big things was like this kind of like fun pet story turning into a monster story that I thought was interesting. Domino is actually the name of Matt Brawley's cat. So that was like an extra funny little tidbit. But yeah, I mean, it was a tough thing to get used to because I think initially maybe like I'll see that episode and I'll see like, okay, I kind of know who Sprig's character is and I kind of know who Anne's character is. But as that show kind of like continues to move forward, post me writing that episode, those characters change and they get more nuanced. So I do think that maybe the stuff that I did for them initially might not have fit for the characters that they became. So I think that's why it kind of gradually changes, which is another thing of like working in animation that you kind of get used to. But I mean, I will say that like I had a lot of fun working on it. It was great working with Matt and Jack. And I was really excited to see the episode when it came out. And I'm really excited to see every episode of Vivio when it comes out. It's a really good show.
Yeah, for sure. And I've obviously talked about this with friends. I've talked about it in my own space. But something that I've like enjoyed personally about Amphibia is that like I feel like the episodes where we have like lighter adventures or just like focus on like the characters hanging out or just like having little misadventures like that, I feel like are just as enjoyable and important to like the whole picture as opposed to like more direct stuff that like goes into the lore and the backstory, just like you know what I mean?
For sure. I feel like a lot of shows I've been able to find that balance where it's not like you're just waiting for the next bit of lore. It's like every episode is fun. I feel like Amphibia's done that. Owl House has done that. Craig has done that. Not to pat myself on the back, but like, DuckTales, all those shows feel like very fun. And like, you don't have to like, I don't have to like break out my notepad and be like, okay, wait, where's the story going? You can just enjoy each episode, which is fun.
Yeah. And it's definitely interesting because like I know people, like me, I'm just like watching like a lot of these shows just like week by week or whenever they come out. And I just like surface level enjoy. But then I see people like going like really deep into it, like analyzing the nuances or whatever, just like the codes on some Gravity Falls type stuff. And that's always fun to see, but the fact that like like both types of people aren't left out, so I really enjoy seeing that.
I've been reading One Piece lately, and I feel like that's a very similar thing where it's like I'm reading it, I'm enjoying the story, and then there's little things that like, oh, I didn't pick up on this thing, but like in the back of the like Q or like questions and answers section, someone points it out, and I'm like, oh, I missed that. That's really clever. So much like you're saying, it does feel like there's the kind of surface level enjoyment, and then there's like digging deeper and like looking for extra clues that people are kind of enjoying.
Oh yeah, and I think it really adds to it because this is something I specifically feel with Amphibious narrative. Is that like sometimes when it comes to like just like shows in general, I don't like feel a motivation for like checking out like an old episode in terms of like reruns or whatever. But this is like one of the first ones where I'm like interested on how like we got from like point A to point C. So I want to go back like to see like intentionally or not like what could like led up to that. And I've honestly been surprised with even just like mild throwaway lines that just like end up like foreshadowing stuff. And I'm just like, man, Sorry for the obligatory geek out.
No,
Frog Show is
please.
just one of my favorites.
I get it.
And you kind of already segued into this, but my next bullet point is outside of animation, what are some of your hobbies and interests you use to relax? Any games, movie, anime, etc.? And which ones would you recommend to everyone to check out?
Oh man. Let's see. I of course mentioned One Piece, which I am really like digging into. I think I started reading it at the end of August, and I'm already on chapter 700. At the time of this recording, it's like early November. So I've been doing that. Also, let's see, play a lot of video games. Divinity, Original Sin 2. I've been playing with a buddy online. The new Mario Party, I'm playing that. I watch a lot of professional wrestling.
Yes.
And I've been able to coerce my wife into watching it with me. So now I have a buddy to like make sure I watch it with.
Yes.
Mainly AEW and New Japan. What else? What else do I like? Marvel movies, shows, etc. Love all of those. At the time of recording, I should be going to see Eternal soon. So yeah, just normal geek stuff, I think.
Oh yeah, so do you have like any recommendations out of like any of those?
Okay, what should I? You know what I'm gonna recommend is a manga called Spy Family that I love.
Oh, I think that's getting an anime soon, right?
I think so.
Yeah, because I saw a lot of people talking about it on my timeline. But continue.
It's so good. It's so funny. You can read on the Shonen Jump app. I don't want to spoil anything, but the premise is basically a spy and an assassin take care of a girl with ESP. None of them know about each other's like secret backgrounds, and it's very funny. It's very good. I love it so much. It's one of my favorite mangas.
Oh, for sure. Let's see. That's something that I admittedly wanted to pick up. Well, just like reading more manga, just like consuming more anime in general, when the pandemic really hit, because I know a lot of people, manga or anime, like picked up One Piece and they were just like able to get deep into it. And I kind of regret it, but at the same time, I was trying to graduate college, so I kind of had to prioritize.
Yeah, no. I mean, you made the right decision, but now that you've graduated, you have no excuse. No. I had no plans to read One Piece. My friend had been trying to get me to read it or watch it for years. There's only 800 episodes. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's so many. And then, of course, when the pandemic hit, everyone was like, if you read like 15 chapters of One Piece every day, you can catch up in like, I don't know, like 3 months or something. And I was like, that's a job. I don't want to do that. And then lo and behold, my wife started reading it. And then I was like, okay, I'll read it. And then I read like 10 chapters. I got hooked. And then fast forward like 2 months later and I'm on chapter 700. It's really good. It's a masterclass in storytelling. And I don't say that lightly. Like, there's things in there where, me as a writer, I'm like, okay, I see where this is going. And then it just doesn't. And it's not like a swerve for the sake of a swerve, like it's actually like well-written stories to the point that I'm like very jealous. And I'm like, how are you doing this? How are you telling these stories at this level for so long? But yeah, it's really good. I highly recommend One Piece. I know it's daunting, but it's not going anywhere. So you can always read a couple of chapters, put it on the shelf for a month, come back, whatever.
Yeah. And see, that's like an interesting point you make, because one thing that I've been wondering is just the idea of like people being able to use like inspiration like from media they consume in order to just like write stories, like say like something like working on a show original or based on IP or, just like something. So I'm wondering if like you'd be able to just like shed some light, not so much like seeking like a reference to something, but just like using like certain like tropes or devices, just like things you think are cool in the writing standpoint into like incorporating that into like the work you do.
Definitely. I mean, when we were talking about reading One Piece, and you're like, that's homework. Like to an extent, it is. As a writer, everything is homework because you're either watching something to be like, okay, why does this work, or you're watching it to figure out why didn't this work? Like, why didn't I feel this payoff? So, I know a lot of people are like, when I watch things, now that I'm in the industry, I can't like turn my brain off and I'm like watching this thing and I'm always thinking about why did you do this shot or whatever. I don't have that problem. I can still enjoy things, but I am like the annoying guy who's like, I'm watching a movie and I'll lean over to my wife and I'll be like, oh, that guy's the killer because they set this thing up early. So, but it is like, you do start to kind of like, you're looking for things that you can kind of like say for later. Or if, for example, like Knives Out is a wonderful mystery movie.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of things, I think, to lean into that trope. So they kind of like have you along for the ride, and then they'll just like breakneck stop. And you're like, wait, what? I thought this was going to happen because this. And it's a very interesting skill to have. So I'm trying to like, whenever I'm watching something and I really like it, I'll try to figure out what did they do to make me feel that way? What did they set up? Like you're saying with Amphibia, like you're going back and you're watching stuff to see like, were there hints all along? And that's like a very difficult thing to do, especially to like drop these hints and not let people know they're hints. Right. But then on the second viewing, you're like, okay, I see what you were doing. So, I mean, I wish I could give some really fun answer, but it is just like, it does kind of equate to homework, but you're not getting tested on it. It's actually fun because your homework's just watching movies all day.
Yeah. Like, I'll admit, I have like an original idea that I've just been like slowly chipping at since high school. It's sadly not really in any real position I can like pitch again on this show, mind you. Mm-hmm. But one of my things has just been, if I'm just like watching like some new media, whether or not it's just for fun or just like to think about for a video, just like if there's something cool, I want to make a note of it. I have like a big Google Doc where it's just like taking notes and there's like certain directions I want to take certain characters, just things I think are cool in media. And, maybe one day, of course, I'll actually fit through everything and just like try to like map it out. But as long as I like have that in a solitary place, like I won't forget it by the time I wake up tomorrow, basically.
God, yes. That's smart. I wish I had done that because I will be like, oh yeah, I remember this. Or I'll write like a note in my phone that's like this thing. And then like a month later, I'll be like, what the hell is this thing? but yeah, that's a really good idea. I mean, kudos to you. That's really smart.
Yeah, thank you. Like, I feel like my main character at the moment is like the person that I've like put like the most sort of like developing towards, and just like now just like make sense of the world and just like how everyone relates to that. But I still have not found a good title. Maybe one day.
It'll come to you. Titles are hard. They're very hard because one, it seems like all the good titles are taken.
Yeah.
And then like you need something that like, when you hear certain titles, you're like, oh, okay, I'll watch it based on that. Or it's like you have like a feeling like deep in you and you're like, what is this? I gotta know what this is. And then other times the title is just like One Piece. And you're like, what? Like, I don't know what that is. Like, one piece of what? And you're like, oh, it's a treasure. So, I mean, you could always make the title relate to something in the thing. Sometimes titles have nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Titles are hard. I don't know how long it took Matt and Ben to come up with Craig of the Creek. Seems like it'd be pretty easy. I guarantee it didn't come very quickly.
Jesus Christ. And yeah, that is something that like even now, like looking at other stuff I ever think about, something that I've been just like a fan of for years, his initial D. And if I remember correctly, like, I think it was like around like the fourth or like fifth, like part season, whatever. It's like they actually discover what the D means. I'm just like, man. But let's see for another bullet point. Okay. So obviously, if people know you, they know you from your work on Crater Creek, which has been very important. So your presence, oh, you're welcome. So your presence on that show, is definitely a huge force for positive representation, especially for Black viewers. As a Black person, is there anything you'd like to see more from indie industry in terms of not only the stories being told, but who they're told by?
Yes. I think the reason Craig is so successful is because it tells a lot of diverse stories, and not just about Black characters, which is a thing that I'm really happy about. Like, I think in the upcoming season too, you'll see like we delve into more stories about Filipino characters, and just like there's a world outside of just like the one protagonist, regardless of the show or regardless of like if it's a Black protagonist, white protagonist, Latinx, like anything. There's always a world outside of that character, and I think there's fun to exploring that character's background as well as the characters around them. I think obviously it helps to have more people of color in the spots to tell these stories, or LGBTQ people or trans people to tell their stories, because you're gonna bring an authenticity that other people might just not have.
Yeah.
So it definitely helps. I think that from what I've seen, it seems like there's been more of an influx than in past years. I hope it continues. I'm trying to do what I can. I know a lot of other people are doing what they can to kind of like uplift these voices and let them tell their stories. So I think honestly, like that's what we need. I think it's going to help things tremendously. I think we're at the beginning of it, and I hope that like 10 years from now, like it's not like when I'm like, oh, well, when I was a kid, we had Static and like Fillmore and, maybe something else, versus like where someone else is like, man, we had Craig, we had this show, like we had Jessica, like all these other shows, so
yeah,
I'm sure that'll happen. And I'm looking forward to it. So yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just holding in on that, honestly, I'm gonna make 2 points. One point I want to make is just the idea of just like being able to like be just like positive force like a young kid, and just like that just like inspire them like for a lifetime, honestly. Because of the fact that I didn't see like I said, like I didn't like physically see a lot of characters in like animation or other shows I watched that really looked like me and like felt were something I could relate to. I could relate to character based on their personality, but oftentimes they didn't like look like me. I feel like the only exception was ironically through Power Rangers. I remember the season Dino Thunder had a character Ethan. And it was interesting because like that whole thing was a setup of trying to like flip a lot of the tropes that they used for the very first season. So you had like Billy, obviously, just like very meek nerd. But then like Ethan, he's obviously fits into that nerd quality. He's not one of the cool kids, but he's still cool in his own right. He's got a little swagger, and he obviously butts heads with Connor, the main dude, who's like a bit more of a jock, but more of a bully. But he can stand up for himself. He's slick. Right. He's got a little bit more of that confidence, because that, especially as we went forward in like the 2000s, because of like technology rapidly accelerating, you're kind of a bit more cool to like be in the know with like nerd stuff rather than be more ostracized. So I appreciate that, and that bit resonated with me. But in terms of like the people behind the scenes, I think I might have like talked about this in like maybe like a video or something, but as as a young kid, I was mainly one of those weirdos who was like actually really interested in like stuff going on behind the scenes, like how the stuff I like, how is it made? And over the years, I've just been like keeping up with like people's names and stuff, and just immediately just like seeing people like Ian Jones Cordy, who like I relate to on multiple levels with just like interest, upbringing, etc. It was just like something just like, hey, it's someone like me out there who's like telling these stories. So it's like, if he can do it, like so can I. And hopefully it's not just like the stories that, we would want to tell or work on, but just like our presence enough, would, be enough to inspire the next generation, like you were saying earlier.
For sure. First of all, like, I love everything you just like. I love that you mentioned like one of the few Power Ranger seasons I've seen after like Mighty Morphin, and then mentioning Ian, who is like one of the coolest people I know, one of the like most interesting storytellers I know. Like, I have so much respect for Ian. And feel so fortunate to have been able to share a space with him. Even though we didn't like work together, but just kind of being in that same creative space was really cool.
Oh, of course.
But like Ian is, what more can you say? Like, Ian is like what is he? The first Black guy to have a show at Cartoon Network that's not Andre 3000. So like that in itself is really cool. And then to create OKKO, which is like such an incredible show, and so many like incredible people in this industry have come from that show. And it was using this show as a springboard for all these careers is incredible. So like, Ian's incredible. Wonderful guy. I hope to be able to work with Ian like on something one day. That'd be a dream.
Oh yeah, like hell. Speaking of dreams, like he's definitely one of the dream guests for this show. Oh man, I just have a high level respect for him myself, because like I think like around like 2008, I was on YouTube. I ended up finding Knock Forest and his student film, which like really resonated with me. I was like keeping up with like KO when its pilot dropped, and like that process, like pilot, and then the trademarks dropping, then the mobile game, and then just like all the episodes, it really just feels like the whole thing. I know, like, obviously, like, a lot of people worked on that show, and they all put, like, their individual visions and, creative flares or whatever, but I feel like KO is, like, one of those shows where we really feel that, like, everyone has, like, a different voice in terms of, like, the way they draw, the way they bore, like, the in-jokes or whatever that they throw in, but it still felt like everyone just, like, coming together, something collaborative, and just, like, multiple episodes looking back, to like the crossovers, to just like Ian wrapping up RPG World in his show, just like all the tropes. It really just feels like he wanted to make a show for himself, just completely unabashedly, and like everyone else who just like wanted to have like genuine passion for just like stories with like love, coming of age, and just like everything that makes us nerds. That's why I feel like, in spite of the fact that it obviously could have gotten at least 2 more seasons, KO will always be something that, like, not only satisfies, like, me as a person now, but, like, the kid in me. And I'm definitely gonna be bringing up, like, any, like, younger people in my family on it as well.
Yeah, I agree. KO should have had more seasons. I should have POW cards in my apartment right now.
Yes.
Like, there's a lot of things that should have happened for KO. But I'm just glad that we got to see Ian's vision. And hopefully we'll get to see more one day. I don't know how things work like that, but
yeah. I don't know if campaigns work, but I mean, like, if I gotta start something, people still get letters in the mail, right?
I mean, they gotta, right? I only get, like, things about credit card signups, but someone's getting letters.
But yeah, let's see. and we're actually doing like really good for time. So
Cool.
if honestly, like if you want to like go into a tangent, like feel free.
I don't tangent much, but I'll see what I can.
Yeah. Because like we're actually like doing so good for time, like I'm already moving on to the Q&A stuff, and it's
Okay.
funny because like in previous episodes, we end up like talking a bit too much, but hey, it's whatever. It's fun at the end of the day. This is a very casual show.
Cool.
So let's see. So I have. And also, like, feel free, like, if some of these points, like, discussed, like, earlier, you don't have to, like, go as in detail, but, you know, it's whatever. It's obvious.
Okay.
So, I have 2 from Inspector Sage over on my YouTube comments. I'll just combine them to 1.
Cool.
Do you believe indie animation / comics are a better place to find good black rep where black characters just exist, or does it depend on the story? And what direction do you think the industry is heading towards when it comes to nuanced black representation in animation?
Wow. These are both very good questions that I wish I had like time to prepare for. I mean, I'll say that to the first question, I think yes. Like, I think anywhere we can mine black talent from and get them on like the grand stage is a pro for me. I mean, on Craig, I can think of a few people who are doing like indie comics that we were able to bring to Craig and have been doing incredible work. Richie Pope being one of them. I want to say Deshaun Mahone was doing indie comics before he's joined over at Ben 10. Who else? Pearl Lowe, who of course was doing like Hair Love, but also has done like indie comics. Like it's Tanika Stotts, of course.
Yeah.
Just incredible people. Like I think comics anywhere that we can find this talent and these people who are passionate about telling stories and deserve the opportunity to get to tell them on the screen for sure. And 9 times out of 10, if you're doing indie comics, like you're hungry and you want to tell these stories anyway. So bringing them to the stage and being able to like say what they need to say and put out these messages out there that need to be heard, I could not agree more. In terms of the second question, I talked so long that I forgot it. So could you remind me what the question was?
Oh, yeah. So what direction do you think the industry is heading towards when it comes to nuanced black rap in animation?
I mean, I think we're heading towards a good spot. I say good because I think it can be better. Mm-hmm. I do feel that like a lot of times it is a lot of examples of needing a black voice in the room. And I think a lot of people take that to mean one. And that's not, I don't think that you can tell, you can't put all your hopes and dreams for diversity on one person and expect that to like be what everyone needs or is looking for.
Yeah, that's unfair and like a lot of pressure on that one person as well.
For sure. So I think that we're moving in a better spot. I think as these rooms start to, one, be more full of multiple people of color and not just one, or, multiple women of color and not just one. I think we're going to get to a better spot. I think as these rooms are being run by more people of color, then I think we're going to be in a better spot. Because you can have one person of color in your room, but if everyone else doesn't understand the nuance of the stories that you're trying to tell, then there's an easier chance that those stories will get passed on and you won't get to tell those stories. Or they'll be adjusted in a way where it's not the intention that you were looking for. So as we have more people of color leading these rooms and making these decisions, I do think that we'll continue to get to a better spot. So I'm going to say good, but with the hesitance of it can always be better.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a lot of like discussion on Twitter, with like shows that I like that are heralded for black rep. And I personally like think the way that it's handled, in certain shows. I don't want to name drop just in case it would come across talking shit. I would never do, but just in case. But then if I see someone like have an issue just because of the fact that they're there weren't many, or if at all, like people of color, black people in the writer's room, I can't say that person's like, critique, or that like how they might not feel that, it quote unquote counts. I can't say that's, a wrong perspective to have. I mean, it's commendable to like have a room that like handles character well, but there's still a certain nuance of just like growing up as someone who's black, as a person of color, that, you kind of need that insight. So, it really is like a collaborative effort that like, as good as you are a writer, a lot of people write the best, from what I imagine at least. Feel free to chime in, obviously, from their own experiences. It's just basically a big melting pot. So no matter like how good you are, like on a technical level, eventually people, I imagine, would notice that like, you're not writing from someone's experience. You're writing about some experience in kind of like an artificial way. So you need like organic, black experiences,
100%. I should also say, I think another thing that'll help is as shows continue, like elevating people to those spots, because sometimes you will like bring in a bunch of people who are talented but don't have that experience, and then you slowly teach them and elevate them. That was one of the things I did love about Craig. That's one of the many things I loved about Craig. Is season 1, I was a staff writer, and that was my first full-time job. By the time season 4 rolled around, I was a supervising producer. Nice. Like Deshaun Mahone, Naja Porter, Tiffany Ford, all storyboard artists season 1, directors season 3, season 4. So it is like, taking those people and those talents and elevating them. And because it's very easy to get complacent and be like, oh, well, this person's doing a great job in this role, so we'll just keep them in this role. And, like seeing the talent in someone and helping them rise to the next occasion. So then, when Craig ends in 30 years, they go off and they have their own shows, or they're running or directing other shows because they have that experience that they got at Craig, So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like you have to, position people to like, have the wings to be able to like, tell their own stories instead of just like, basically just like keeping them as like a central cog, because not only does that like stunt someone else's growth, but there could be like someone else who's like just as good, but you wouldn't know because just like keeping that one person in the machine like that.
1,000,000%. I could not have said that better myself.
Thank you. And when it comes to uplifting voices, this is just like a little mini tangent I've just been dying to tell. Just like one half sentimental, one half joke. But okay. So for people listening, I'll just say this. Like my audio here obviously just sounds like a lot better when I first started this podcast. And if I remember correctly, like you would actually just like DM me, just like offering to like get a microphone for me. And like on one hand, like I really appreciate that. Like it's just like one of the best like gestures. But on the other hand, there is just simply like no way I could have accepted that, because like just imagine just like explaining that to my mom. It's like, hey, this guy who's like a head producer on a show on Cartoon Network wants to get me a microphone completely, no questions asked. There's just no way. Come on, like you get like black moms.
I 100% know what you mean.
Yeah.
Because it's at base level, if I'm hearing it somehow outside, I'm like, this is a scam. Like, what's happening?
Exactly. I had a very similar experience trying to convince my folks to attend Lightbox, which, it's like digital this year. I'm just like, no, it's only like, I was trying to say like something like $3 or whatever. Like, I don't really like need this merch or whatever. And, for my folks who've never heard about the stuff in their life, just like, it sounds too good to be true. You gotta look it up. It's probably a scam. It's like, Mom, please, they've been doing this for years.
I get that. My thing is like, I feel like I'm very fortunate to be in a spot where I can kind of help people whose work I appreciate. Like, like you, Tariq, like so many people that I am like fans of. So I'm like, oh, well, if you need this thing, like it's not an issue. I can help out. But I also completely get your position where you're like, I don't even know this dude. And he's like, what? Like, here's a mic. So I get it. Obviously I didn't take it any kind of way, of course. But yeah, just.
Oh, yeah. I think like me, and this is really my final like main tan before we move on to another prompt. Like obviously, my position currently, I did not go to like any art college. Like not even like an art high school really. Like I'm just like grinding. So I'm in like a very fortunate position. Like little like a year and a half, like I know like a lot of people who are like artists who are just making their way into the industry, or like people who I've known for years, and I've had like great experience with almost everyone, and I'm very fortunate about like the people who like want to help me like actively. But at the same time, it's like I'm basically kind of scared because like I know people like actually have jobs, so it's like I don't want to like freaking you know what I mean. I just like don't want to feel like I'm bothering someone, basically.
I think that's like, that's really altruistic of you. I think I 100% get that as someone else who like didn't go to college for this. I didn't like pursue writing in school. Like I taught myself, and I like found a way to make it work. So I think that's really cool. I also get that you're like, there's other people who might need this thing more than I need this thing. Yeah. And I think that's really cool too. So yeah, I mean, like I completely get it. I think, if anything, now I want to buy you an extra mic. No, I'm kidding.
Well, in all seriousness, I feel like my folks are actually seeing this and knowing that you are indeed a real person, might probably help my chances. But like in the terms of like altruism, and maybe this might be like spoiling things like for the future of the show, but I never wanted to be like exclusively like just like industry people. Not to say that like opportunities like this are like bad, far from it. Like this is like, if I told like high school me I'd be like doing this right now, like they'd flip. But like I know like a lot of like people, be they like, artists, like people who are adjacent to the industry, just like content creators in general, that I think are cool. Because like I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but I kind of make a little promise to myself, like if I ever got like into a decent spot, like doing YouTube, doing art or whatever, like I want to like spend like at least like half of like my time, trying to help people, the same way that like I got helped into being in this position. So I definitely want to talk to some smaller artists, definitely want to talk to some friends, just, like not for like any particular reason why, just like being a good person,
Yeah, I definitely get that. I mean, I was the same way when I started. I was like, because I had those moments where I'm like reaching out to people. I'm like, hey, can you read my script? Can you do this? Which I know now is like a lot of work to put on somebody.
Yeah.
Especially like who's working. Like that's my one regret, is that I don't have time to like respond to a bunch of people who reach out to me. And I feel bad about it, but I also have to like, I'm working full time. I need to have like free time. I can't take on 80 other things outside of like freelance and random comics I'm doing for fun. Yeah. But I definitely get that. It's one of those things where like, as you are in a position to help more people, your time is dwindling. So you got to have some modicum of free time in between that. Like even now, I was excited to do this podcast, which I have been enjoying, but also like I have a bunch of work to do today. So like right after this, I have to like dig into a script, so even then, like it feels like you're never not working. So then the moment you do have like a little time to like read One Piece or something, or I guess hang out with my wife, I have to like
treasure One Piece. Oh God, man.
But yeah, I get it.
And no, I relate before we go into the next question, because like I literally might have to record like a gameplay thing, some other friends like immediately after this, so trust me, I get the grind. So let's see. Oh, okay. So Talia Perper asks, what is something you learned on a job that ended up being way more important than you expected?
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
My first job technically was Harvey Beaks. I wasn't staffed on Harvey, but I was a part of Harvey's room while I was in the Nick writing program for, I want to say, like 4 or 5 months. And the thing I learned there is like, there is nothing better than a crew that gets along and loves the show that they are working on.
Yeah.
And like working on Harvey was, I always say I didn't go to college, but I imagine it's what college is like. It's just a bunch of people who like hanging out, who like the thing they're doing, who like hang out after work and play board games or play like Smash Bros. And like, you're just hanging out all the, like, to the point where you don't want to go home because you're like, I don't want to miss the cool hangout part.
Yeah.
And that vibe was like very apparent on Harvey. And it was because Carl took a lot of care in who he brought onto his crew. And making sure that like they were all nice people, everyone was going to get along. And that being my first show set a bar where I would hear from other people, like, just so you know, like, not every show is like this. And I almost like wanted to disprove that, where I'm like, yes, they are, and they will be. So then when I went to Craig, and again, I started Craig like very early. I was one of the first 7 people on the crew. You know, knowing what Harvey was and wanting to kind of be able to replicate that, Craig. And then everyone that Matt and Ben brought on were great people who were sweet, who were nice. And we were able to kind of like revive that Harvey vibe of like, okay, people are hanging out, they're playing games. Like, you know, there's 3 different D&D games going on at once. People are like hanging out after work to play Magic the Gathering. Like, It was like, it's an incredible environment to the point where, again, you don't want to leave after work. And it's like, okay, you can go home, but you're going to miss out on playing like Dragon Ball FighterZ. Or, you know, you're like excited to go to work because you're going to hang out with your friends and you're all going to work on a thing that you love making, as opposed to like, oh God, tomorrow's Monday. Like, I got to go to work, you know? So I learned that like having a show where everyone is excited to work on it and excited to give it their own. Like, the show is infinitely better just by osmosis because everyone's happy and everyone's like willing to push that a little bit further to make a special product. So yeah, I took that from Harvey. I was able to have that at Craig. I left Craig a few months ago, and now I'm on my own thing that should be getting announced soon, hopefully. And that kind of environment is still there, even through like crazy post-COVID, like work from home protocols. Like, you know, like, but making sure that like the crew is enjoying themselves and everyone gets along is like the biggest thing I think you can have for a show.
Oh yeah, because like animation truly is a collaborative effort, and you know, just having that level of synergy, you know, is definitely appreciated. I can definitely tell from experience, you know, some of the final group projects that I've had to do for college, you know, not having that synergy is not gonna help. Oh man, I can make comments about that shit.
Do
it. And also, not to immediately get sidetracked again, mind you. But you know, just acknowledge that like people are able to play games like on free time, of course. Like, look, I'm just saying, like, freaking 2025. I don't know if there's anyone who plays Melee over the industry, but it's like they want to smoke.
I'm sure there were so many days on Craig where it's just like lunch is like running long and people are playing Duck Game on the PS4, like, and like one of the other shows is like complaining because the Craig crew's loud because they're like yelling about random video games. Yeah, like, yo, cut it out. We have work to do. We're like, yeah, we're working too. We're working on beating this game.
Oh man, I get like immediate flashbacks to my college anime club just from hearing that. The people from my college are gonna laugh whenever they hear this, but there was legit like, because we are sadly, like, I think, like, right next to the library. So, you know, that was already gonna, like, lead to, like, some situation. But if I remember correctly, so you know that one page from Ed and Eddie where they just like physically just like rip out like Ed's staircase?
Yeah.
That's basically what happened to our TV. Just like one day, like people just like came there and it was gone, and we had stuff behind there, so that was gone too, and we like never saw it again.
Jesus.
No, yeah, but I don't know, like some of the they just like hated us, so you know. It was an inside job. That's what I'll say. All right, next question. Finally, Gary Chamarki, he asks, where do you feel most at home in terms of writing? On more slice of life comedies or more kinetic action oriented shows? Also, what show was most challenging in terms of adapting your own personal style?
I would say after 4 years of Craig, I feel very at home in a slice of life. I think the thing is, I don't like feeling at home, if that makes any sense. Like, I think there's something fun of like, it's very easy to get complacent. Not that I was complacent at Craig, but you know, when you tell the same kind of stories, and those stories aren't the same, but you know what I'm trying to say. When you're telling like one genre of stories, no matter how like, oh, it's a Kelsey episode, so we can fully like push the action, or you know, it's a JP episode, so it can be like a lot of heart, but you know, like regardless of the way you can kind of tweak it, they are still slice of life. And I, growing up as like someone who loved like Batman and Spider-Man and like the X-Men cartoon, like that, there is something fun to like, ooh, I want to do like an action thing, you know? Like,
yeah,
I got to do an episode of TMNT, The Rise of the TMNT, that unfortunately didn't come out, but like, that was really fun for me because I was like, I get to write with these characters that I love, and I get to do this action and it's comedy and all this stuff. So there is something about like, yes, I feel at home doing slice of life, but I want to push myself. I want to have a summer home doing action, if that makes sense. So yeah, like I would say, I feel more comfortable in slice of life, but I want to kind of push that comfort zone in action. And then, crap, there was a second question that I've again forgotten.
Oh, no problem. What show was most challenging in terms of adapting your own personal style?
I did a show called Little Big Awesome. I wrote 2 episodes of that for Amazon, and that show was really, really fun, but it was also like the perfect level of like crazy, like Ren and Stimpy-esque crazy, where it's like, okay, now the building can just talk, and like this can happen, and like you can like knock somebody across the sky to the like. It was so, it's weird to go from writing like Harvey Beaks, which is a very like, you know, cute, down to earth, like friendly, down to earth slice of life show, to this show, which was just like, anything can happen. Like you can put the sun in your pocket, like that, and just be like, how does this, like, how do you break your brain to like have fun with this? But it was a really fun show. I was very excited when they asked me to come back and do a second one. Ooh. And it's very like goofy. I think there's one of the episodes I did is like one of the characters becomes the sun and the other one becomes the moon, and they're best friends, but they can't be together because they both have to like rotate around the earth. So they keep trying to come together, but it keeps causing like natural disasters. It's very ridiculous, but it was so fun to do that episode. So yeah, that was the one I probably struggled with, like figuring out how to make it work. But once I did, it was like a really fun experience.
Oh, yeah, I'm really glad to hear that, obviously. So, let's see. Oh, okay. Friend of the show, Ryan, who hosts the Game Punks podcast.
Ryan.
They're gonna flip hearing this. We were literally watching like the Craig Halloween special like a couple weeks ago.
Oh, nice. So. The La Llorona episode.
I think it was the one where it was just like the kids are trying to like get the candy because the headless dude.
Oh, the trick or treat, the half hour. Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh, not concise. We can gush about that episode later. But yes, Ryan's question. Hey, Jeff, big fan of the show here. I think Credit Creek does a really great job capturing the joy and authenticity of childhood play. Do you and the other writers draw upon specific experiences from your own childhoods to inform ideas for episodes and the many games that Greek kids play?
Yes. Yes, we do. There's a lot of times where we would just be in the room like, okay, what did you guys play when you were a kid? Is this a thing that everyone played, or is this a like weirdly specific thing that like only people in Detroit played? So I know like Foursquare was one of the ones that like we really wanted to do early on. Of course, The Ground is Lava. I really wanted to do Capture the Flag, which is how we came up with the 6-parter. Like I pitched Capture the Flag back in like season 1. I was like, what if we did this? And then we had like started building to do like a big Creek versus Creek Capture the Flag game in season 3. So yeah, a lot of times it was like, what do we play a lot, or like how did you feel about these games? I'm trying to think of other games that we did, or games that were like specific to me. I'm kind of blanking. I know that was a thing in Ace of Squares, which was our Foursquare episode. Everybody had different rules from where they grew up because there's so many people. Like, I remember telling them, like, we had a rule called pity pats where you could pick the ball up and you like smack it back and forth between your hands, and then you could just slam it on somebody. And they're like, we never did this. What is this rule? So I think that was the most fun one, of like trying to figure out all these weird rules and then figure out a way to explain them in the context of the show, right, without making it like very boring for people. And I can also tease that we did do a kickball episode in season 4. That's really fun.
I think like technically just like stretching the definition of game, but I feel like the episode that like sticks out to me was the one where I think it was just like Craig and his dad were trying to bond over this basic Street Fighter game. Yes. Yeah.
That was another one that we talked about a lot. I want to say Deshaun might have pitched that, and then at the same time, me and Jason in the office, me and Jason Dwyer, were playing a lot of Power Stone. So that game is loosely based on Power Stone. I think the designs and stuff. But yeah, like I think Deshaun was talking about like story with him and his dad playing a game, and then I recalled on like one of my happiest moments was playing Streets of Rage 2 with my dad and beating that game. So then we kind of just started to figure out like what's a fun like father-son story for Craig and Dwayne based on video games.
Yeah. And, just like seeing that, like I really relate because like my biggest father figure is like my uncle, and like a lot of stuff I developed like towards my interest, and especially like my appreciation for I guess like retro video games like really comes from him. And like look like I don't know. I feel like if people just like look at like my age and I just say like, oh yeah, I love the Jensen, just like they're kind of gonna doubt it. But like if you have like certain people just like growing up on certain things, that's how you develop that stuff. Like, I was not playing the high tech stuff when I was younger. I was like hooked on, it was 2008 and I was still having like Diddy Kong Racing turns with my cousins on the N64. So it's like, everyone has a different experience, and again, it's not just of just like experience of like my life that I hope to, share like others someday. But in a little experience with like games, like I want to, I'm trying to like teach like some of my younger cousins. I remember like before the pandemic, like some of my younger cousins, I was teaching them to like play like Skullgirls and Sonic Mania, and they were just having like the time of their lives. And you gotta raise them up right,
I like that you're not making them play like Mario 64 or something.
Nah, that's like vanilla.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's still good, but it's like,
But yeah, I get it. I mean, I loved Mario 64 in 1997. That doesn't mean people are going to love it now.
Yeah. I mean, like, anyone could like raise up like kids on Mario 64, but if you like go out of your way to choose Capcom versus SNK 2, see that's where you get it. That's where you get the real good taste. Let's see. Next question. So Tune for Thought asks, what would you consider your proudest accomplishment during your time on Craig of the Creek?
Man, there's a lot. Voicing Cannonball. Voicing Cannonball is really fun because since I was a kid, I've loved like voice acting. And also playing a character. I was Gibson in an episode where I got to be in the booth with Phil Lamar. That was incredible because I loved Static, and I've been a fan of Phil Lamar literally since I was a kid. Which he probably wouldn't want to hear because it would make him feel old. But like, I remember like being like 5, 6, watching him on Mad TV as like the over excitable like delivery guy or whatever. Yeah. And so to go to like flash forward like 25 years and then be in the booth with Phil Lamar was like a dream. If I'm going to pick one, I'm probably going to say it was doing the Thanksgiving episode of Craig of the Creek. Yeah. I loved that episode. I pitched it a few times, and we're constantly trying to rework it to make it better. But like early on in Craig, we weren't doing a lot of family episodes because, it's called Craig of the Creek, and the network wanted to kind of be focused more on the Creek. And then as we did more family stuff, they got to see that like, oh, people really love the family episodes. So let's do more. So when we got to Thanksgiving and we did the Thanksgiving episode, it was like a really fun chance to like play with all these characters, like, Craig's family, Bryson's family, the grandparents, the sweet potato pie, which is like one of my favorite stories ever. Like, can you tell a story about a sweet potato pie? That is so like, that's such an inherently Black story. And like, it was really fun. Like getting to do that episode, getting to bring everybody in, like sitting in the record, like directing them with Ben. And it's like, Terry Crews and Lo Rel and Tisha Campbell and Kimberly Herbe Gregory and Phil Lamar, like all these like incredible actors like in the booth. And then like, Phil's there and Philip's there and Terrence is there who plays Bryson. And like, it's just, it had to be the most Black people in a record at Craig or the Cartoon Network ever. Like, I loved it. And, that was an incredible day. And then like the episode comes out and then we ended up getting nominated for an Emmy from it. So it was just like the perfect storm of like everything I love about that show. And getting to like tell that story and do that with just like such an incredible group and then get nominated for it was like a dream come true. Yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can imagine it'd be a great achievement. So let's see. Okay, so we have a small bit left. So let's see. So Ace Librarian, host of the Pinky in the Brain podcast. What are some of the most rewarding aspects of your job? Are there any amusing anecdotes from the writing room that you would wish to share?
I mean, I feel like I kind of just answered this, so I'll just talk about amusing anecdotes. Yeah. There's a bit. Okay, so a lot of times pitches will happen, and people will put in jokes solely to make us laugh in the pitch because there's no way they're going to make it to TV because they're just like absurd jokes. One I'm immediately thinking of is in the fall anthology episode. There's a bit where JP's like his lips crack because they're so dry, and we just see all these clips of like things breaking and cracking, and then Sparkle Cadet shows up and puts lip balm on his lips, and then he turns around and he just has these like realistic like human lips that look awful. And in the pitch I think it was Deshaun and Naja, and they did a thing where like they literally just cut the lips out of a like Google photo and like placed them on him, and it looked so freaky that we were like, we have to do it. So we like figured out a way to make it work and then do it in the show. And then another instance I'm thinking of is there's an episode where they say something about having tattoos, and Jason Dwyer in the pitch like flubbed and said tattoo instead of tattoo, and we all like they teased him for it. It was so funny. And then at the record, we were like, hey, can you guys say tattoo instead of tattoo? So now in the episode, they just say tattoo for no like it's inexplicable to anyone watching it, but it's just to make us laugh. The same with the episode, the Ice Pop Trio, the first time Sparkle, Cannonball, and Craig come together. There's a bit where they go get money from the elders, and Mark's line is, the money, it's gone. But in the script, I think there was a typo, and they were just like, they money, they gone. And, and Ben was like, I'm just recording it like this. So there's a lot of like goofy little inside jokes that just stayed because we thought they were funny.
Yeah. Oh, man. So let's see. So this one is like asked by two different people, but they're kind of similar. So I'll just like say both their names, kind of fuse the question. You can approach it however. So RT/Tiny Toy Tiger and Faceless Symbiote basically asked.
Cool name.
Yeah, it is. Between working for Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Disney, what was it like, and which one did you feel most comfortable working at?
I mean, I'd say, truthfully, I don't have a ton of experience with Disney. I did work on Amphibia and Owl House, but those are both freelance, so I wasn't like in-house. So I'll kind of eliminate them from contention. And then Nickelodeon brought me out here. Like I won the Nick writing program and literally like came here through that company. So I love them, but I think honestly, maybe I'll go Cartoon Network. It's a very tough question. Like they're all great. There's always people moving between the studios. So there's people I loved at Cartoon Network who now work at Nickelodeon. So it's also like, okay. Yeah. But I think, there was a certain camaraderie at Cartoon Network. It's kind of like I think especially like early on, people have always looked at Cartoon Network as like the underdog studio. Like they'll do the kind of weird shows that the other two might not do.
Exactly. Yeah. And
also like getting to be there and not being like a part of the writing program, which I was when I was at Nick. I got to kind of, as a staff writer on Craig, I got to kind of like meet more people, I got to, meet Ian. I got to meet Rebecca. I got to meet Lamar before he came over to Craig. Like so many cool people there that I just got to kind of meet and pick their brains and hang out with them. So I think also I was at Craig so long that I feel like Cartoon Network is like in a weird way, my home because I was there for 4 years. Yeah. So much so that I moved up the street from Cartoon Network and I live like 3 minutes from Cartoon Network.
Just like waving out the window.
Yeah. So also because I still do records for Craig, so I still have to go to CN a lot. So yeah, I think it's just, I'd probably go Cartoon Network, to be honest.
All right. And there's no like traditional like picture I can like put for this question because it was literally like asked like a couple days before I finalized everything. So one of my friends, Geek Tunes, he was just like really interested in that Red Hood pitch that you had tweeted out. So is there anything you can talk about here? Is that safe?
I'm hesitant to say too much in case I ever pitch it again, but I will say I was really excited to do it. It was an animated Red Hood show, adult animated. So John Wick meets BoJack Horseman, which I thought was like a fun mixture. We would have been dealing with like Jason's problems of like looking up to the golden boy who is Nightwing, Dick Grayson, and always kind of falling to reach that level.
Mm-hmm.
And he would have been him and Roy Harper, aka Red Arrow or Speedy or 80 other Arsenal. There's like 80 nicknames for him. And Onyx, who's a kind of rarely used DC character, but she's like a member of the League of Assassins, and she's a black woman. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of like add her to the mix.
Yeah.
And it would have been the three of them kind of like hanging out, doing a lot of fun things that I won't delve into in case I get the opportunity. But that's the bare amount I'm willing to share. I'm hopeful that one day I'll be able to do that show. So.
Oh yeah, me too as well. Best of luck if you ever decide to repitch it.
Thank you.
And let's see. I think that might be it actually in terms of your questions. If there's like any sort of like other main tangents, any sort of things that you want to drop.
When does this come out?
Honestly, as soon as I'm able to.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm working on a video that I've literally been working on for a year, so it's like whenever I'm able to.
Okay. So I have a show that's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're announcing it soon. It might be announced by the time this is out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited for it. It's a dream come true. It had to be to get me to leave Craig, and it is a dream come true. And I'm sure once it's announced, you'll have me back on the show so we can discuss. But
absolutely.
Yeah, it's really cool. So that's all I can say. But yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
Oh yeah, I trust like anything that's like you on it, it's definitely going to be great. And of course, like to you or just like anyone, like I'm more than happy to have like repeat guests. Like don't even.
Awesome.
But yeah, since that is basically our questions, do you have like anything in general that you would want to plug before we sign off?
Oh yeah, let's see. What can I plug? Craig of the Creek on Cartoon Network or the HBO Max app.
Yeah.
Season 4 is insane. I was there for a majority of season 4. I'm really excited. It's possibly the strongest season, and it's definitely the weirdest season in the best way. I'd love to mention, if you read comics, DC Comics Truth and Justice, the trade paperback is coming out November 30th. I did a story in there with the Red Hood, so if you want to read me writing Red Hood, it's there for you. I also have a story in the upcoming DC Comics holiday special called "'Tis the Season to Be Freezin'," in which I tell a story with Firestorm and Killer Frost.
Okay. All that sounds like great. Like as I initially said in my promo post, like you have like quite the resume already, and very impressive and obviously inspirational.
Oh, thank you.
As for my announcements, I have finally started a Ko-fi. So if anyone listening would like to support the show, or just my creations in general. Obviously it is a bit rusty, but at the moment, if you donate any amount, you'll basically like be seeing exclusive posts for whatever. I'm working on hopefully getting some bonus episodes where I just have like a more casual setting, like interview more non-animation people. That retrospective that I was talking about earlier that I've literally been working on for a year, it's in the final stages, and I currently have a 9-minute preview. So if you like donate any amount to Ko-fi, you'll have that unlisted link, and it will be up whenever that's up. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts. I'm gonna be trying to do art commission soon as well, and Honestly, just thank you in general for just like listening to the show, wherever you do it, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. However, I am eternally grateful for just being in this position, because I think we're actually like a year old at this point. I never would imagine something that I literally just started, with my friends in college, just said like, hey, fuck it, why not? Would just lead to me being able to talk to and just like share experiences and just like establish like some form of like relationship with like a lot of people, some old, some new, that like all great people, and hopefully many more to follow. So again, thank you very much. And sorry for getting sappy at the end there. I'm just like very appreciative just like where I am right now.
That was beautiful, and congrats on a year. That's insane. Wow.
Yeah.
To many more.
Yes, hopefully. I still, obviously, like, my end goal is definitely going to be making the industry. And if I'm still able to just like balance this while doing that, still not actually quite sure what I want to do yet, but if I'm still able to do that, that'll be great. And obviously, I mean, like, don't want to say it because I don't want to jinx it. But if I'm ever able to get to other people's podcasts, I think that would just be like, the point where I like, yeah, I made it because I am actually like right there. But again, I'm farther than I ever thought I would be, like, ever. So I think it's all really realistic. But
You'll get there.
Oh yeah, for sure. And thank you for supporting. Just thank you for being a great guest.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. And with that, I'll finally sign off. This has been another great episode of the KashCast. I have been Cash.
I've been Jeff.
And we will both see you next time. Just remember to take care, stay safe, wear a mask, and love and peace always.